My name is Coralie Santana. I am the Policy and Advocacy Strategist with the Connecticut Project Action Fund. And I will say my intro again in Spanish. Mi nombre es Coralie Santana. Soy la estratega de políticas del Connecticut Project Action Fund. Y estamos disponibles para cualquier medio que necesita más información en español. We are joined here by mayors from across the state and our chair of the GAE committee and so many people who care deeply about voting. At the Connecticut Project Action Fund, we believe that every voter, no matter their circumstance, should have the opportunity to cast their ballot in whatever way makes sense for them, regardless of an excuse or circumstance. And we are all here today to celebrate that. I am so grateful to each and every one of you who have taken the time out of your busy days to attend this virtual press conference. Grateful to you all because I know that getting all of you down to the steps of Hartford was going to be quite a challenge. So thank you all for your flexibility. We are going to open it up by simply stating where we are, right? A few, weeks away from the election day, and just a week away from early voting, or less than a week at this point. And there is a ballot question, sometimes more than one for some towns, right? I know that's true for the city of Waterbury. And that ballot question would allow the legislature to amend our state constitution to allow any voter who so chooses to vote by absentee. That is why we are here today. And I'd be remiss if I didn't start with one of the champions who has gotten us here to this moment to get this question on the ballot. And that is State Senator May Flexer, a woman that I admire deeply. And I thank her so much for being here. Senator Flexer, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Coralie, and grateful to be here this morning to talk about this important initiative that's on the ballot for voters starting next week on October 21st, when our early voting begins. As many folks listening today may know, Connecticut has had some really stringent restrictions on voting access in our state constitution. And the voters in Connecticut overwhelmingly removed one barrier to early voting 2 years ago. And starting next week, they have an opportunity to remove the next barrier to make it easier for people to vote. And that is to allow universal access to absentee ballots. The question is on the ballot next week. And I'm hopeful that the voters of Connecticut will show a strong support, as they did for early voting 2 years ago, on this measure. It's important that we move forward and catch up with so many other states across the country, from conservative states to more liberal states. All across the country, voters have access to absentee ballot voting that is universal. And here in Connecticut, that's just not the case. And hopefully that's about to change. When we make it easier for people to vote, more people participate in our democracy, and that makes for the strongest democracy. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Senator Flexer, and thank you so much for getting us to this moment. I would like to also introduce former mayor of Hartford, Luke Bronin, who without him, we would not have such a robust field of mayors from across the state. Really, thank you so much for organizing your peers. And after Mayor Bronin, we will jump into our first list of speakers. And that would take us to be kicked off by Mayor Danielle Wong after Luke, and folks have the speaker list from there. So please continue on so that I don't have to introduce every single one of you, because we'd be here all day. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Coralie. Thank you to you and to the Connecticut Project Action Fund. And thanks to this incredible collection of mayors who are here today to get the word out and make sure that Connecticut voters know that they have an opportunity to vote yes for universal access to absentee balloting and remove another barrier to vote. I also just want to say a huge thank you to Senator Flexer for her leadership on this, and for all her colleagues in the legislature who, on a bipartisan basis, support this measure to make it easier for people to vote. I think there are a few things that are important. You know, Corley's mentioned that this press conference was going to originally be in person, but mayors are busy people. The truth is everybody's busy. And, you know, if you're working a couple of jobs, if you're working a job that has non-traditional hours, if you're caring for kids, if you're caring for parents, if you're disabled or you're finding difficulty getting up and moving around, you should have the ability to vote. And that's what this measure is about. It's as simple as that. We want to make it possible for everybody to participate in our democracy because we believe in the basic principle that our democracy is stronger when everybody who is able to participate participates. It's also important to say that this measure would not put Connecticut in the lead or out front on this issue. This is Connecticut catching up. You know, almost 2/3 of states in the country already have this provision. For us to allow people to vote with absentee ballots, we need to amend the Constitution, and that's why it's so important for people to vote yes on the absentee ballot amendment. And really appreciate, you know, any press and everybody who's out there helping to get the word out, because the residents of Connecticut, the voters in Connecticut deserve to know that they have the opportunity to remove this barrier to voting, to make it possible for people to vote by absentee. So I'll stop there. Again, hugely grateful to everybody for being on and for everybody who is helping to spread the word and make sure that Connecticut voters know they have the chance to make this change, to make it easier for everybody to vote. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I just want to thank Coralise and your team for bringing this to the forefront of the state of Connecticut. I want to thank Mayor Bronin for looping me in as well. I am from Bloomfield, Connecticut, and absentee voting is absolutely a critical tool that we use right here in our community to make sure that access to democracy is at the forefront of how we operate as a government. And what I love about this particular issue on the ballot, it is not a partisan issue. This has broad support over many different ways of life and how you look at things, whether you're a Republican, an independent, a Democrat. And I think that's important to emphasize as we move into the support and move into early voting in November here. We can have improvement of security as well as access and the ability and widen that and broaden that net without compromising the safety of how we proceed with elections. And I think that's very critical as we see propaganda from around the country. We need to ward that off, stick together, and make sure that everyone has access to democracy. Everyone has access and has their voice being heard, no matter who's on the ballot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Wong. I believe that I am next. Mayor Roberta Wiles, Danbury, Connecticut. And why I thought it was important to be here and support this, it's really about ballot access. It is hard for many people to get to the polls, and Danbury, I don't believe is going to be unique here when it comes to that. We have 60% of our population commuting to work, and many of those driving more than 45 minutes to get there. And on top of that, many of those, like my parents when I was growing up, working multiple jobs. So finding time to get to vote isn't as easy as some people think. This is a safe, measurable, bipartisan measure. Connecticut, like Mayor Bronin said earlier, would not by any means be taking the lead on this. Really, we'd be catching up. And we need to increase turnout in election. This is critical. And it's nice to know that, you know, this is safe across the country. You see voters do this in red states like Oklahoma, like Idaho, and it's time that we catch up and do it here. And if I may, I don't know who are the press on the other side, but I did hear Corliss introduce yourself in Spanish. Es una cosa muy importante para la comunidad latina también, porque nosotros necesitamos votar más. Nosotros tenemos unidad cuando votamos juntos. Es aquí una cosa que podemos hacer ahora porque nosotros estamos trabajando mucho. Nuestras familias, nuestros estudiantes saben que la importancia de nuestro voto y poder votar más cero, poder tener más días para votar, es importante para todos nosotros. And this is something for the whole state that's critical for every community. So thank you very much. And we support this here in Danbury.
So it appears that Mayor Garrett is not on yet. And we are going to skip right to former state representative and mayor.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm here. I just didn't know
Oh.
the speaker order.
Sorry, I didn't see you there. Thank you so much. Go ahead, and then we'll go to.
Good morning. So I'm coming to you from Hamden, Connecticut. I'm Mayor Lauren Garrett, and Hamden was the winner of having the greatest turnout for the early voting for both the presidential preference primary as well as for the primary. So we're looking forward to having really great turnout for early voting, but I think it's really important for us to have great access to voting. Voting is a right, and this right should be accessible to all. By voting yes on this ballot question, we're not just expanding our voting options, we're ensuring that students, service members, and anyone temporarily away from home can participate in our democracy. This measure will also help those who face challenges getting to the polls. Our seniors, individuals with disabilities, and anyone who simply can't make it on election day. By increasing access to voting, we are making a commitment to inclusivity and fairness in our electoral process. Let's break down the barriers to voting and encourage participation from every corner of our state. I urge you to vote yes on this ballot question and help us build a stronger, more inclusive democracy for all. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Mayor Caroline Simmons from Stamford, and just grateful and proud to be joining all of you in strong support of this absentee voting for all ballot measure. I want to thank Corliss. Thank you, Senator Flexer, so much for your incredible advocacy for so many years on expanding access to voting in our state. Thank you to the Connecticut Project. Thank you, Mayor Bronin, for all of your leadership on this issue, and to all of our fellow mayors on this call. It's wonderful to see you all virtually. I was happy to not have to drive to Hartford this morning because we can get this done in an efficient way, especially after the late night Monday Night Football Jets game, if anyone stayed up late to watch that. But I couldn't think of a more important topic to be advocating for with all of you today. This is really about making sure that everyone has access to the ballot, making sure everyone in our community can vote. And this measure will ensure that Connecticut joins many other states across the country to enhance voter access and increase voting power. A yes vote on this measure will also remove unnecessary barriers to voting, making it easier for working families, people with busy schedules, individuals with disabilities or health concerns or other commitments to participate in our democratic process. We want to make it easier for people to vote and make their voice heard in our democracy. And by expanding access to absentee voting, we're promoting a system that works for all residents where no one is left out. So we've got 21 days to go to educate voters on the importance of this ballot measure. So we want to encourage everyone to talk to your friends and neighbors. Every conversation makes a difference, and together we can ensure a strong turnout for this crucial decision and make Connecticut's voting system more inclusive and accessible for all. So thank you so much to everyone here today using your voices to advocate to make Connecticut's voting system more inclusive and accessible and strengthening the foundation of our democracy.
Thank you so much, Mayor Simmons. We're going to go to Mayor Benjamin Florsheim of Middleton.
Thanks, Corliss. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Mayor Simmons, and it's good to see my colleagues here. I apologize for joining a little late. I will try not to be too repetitive of what has been already articulated, but I'm really grateful to this group, to Mayor Bronin, to TCP for getting us together with just, as Caroline said, just a few weeks, really a handful of days, it feels like, to this incredibly important election. And it's incredibly important that people know that this is one of the questions that is going to be before them all across the state. And I think most of us, if not all of us, have local ballot initiatives that we're working to communicate with our voters about. This is the one question that all of us in the state are going to be voting on. And in many ways, it is the biggest and most competitive election that is taking place in Connecticut this year. We have federal and state and, of course, a presidential election. But again, this is the one question that is statewide for all of our voters. And it's the one race that is not really considered safe by any of the impartial observers. And it's just so important that we get the word out. And there's a little bit of a irony in the fact that we are trying to make sure that people know about voting on a question, the purpose of which is to make voting easier and more accessible. But that is really incumbent on us as leaders, as those who run elections at the local level day in and day out, who understand and see the shortcomings in the system that we have, to make sure that people have this option and have this opportunity, that we can improve without compromising safety or security, the systems that we put in place kind of rapidly in the face of an emergency during the COVID-19 pandemic. That has been a really effective way to expand the vote, to expand the franchise, to make sure that people are not disenfranchised because of the fact that they are sick or that they are homebound, that they are caring for a loved one. But we have a ways to go in the form of changing our laws to really reflect that this is how we want to approach voting in our state. Connecticut has some of the most restrictive voting laws in the country. And any time that our state is in the news for election-related reasons, setting aside who won and who lost. But if we're ever in the news for election-related reasons, it's not been good news. Not in the time that I have been in this state and working in politics and serving in elected office, and that includes the fact that a few years ago a similar question went before the voters and failed because people did not understand what it was they were voting on, and because people like us were not as effective as we ought to have been in getting the message out about why it was important. I didn't grow up in Connecticut. I came here as a college student and found my home, and here I still am. But that means that I've voted one time in a state other than Connecticut, in the state of Wisconsin, when I was 18 years old. And that first ballot that I cast was an in-person early vote for a primary election, where I walked into the county clerk's office, got a ballot, filled it out, left, and then a few weeks later got on a plane to come to college. And that was the norm and is the norm in the majority of our states around the country. And to deny that option to our residents as a state that is trying to expand rights for all people, that prides itself on our progressive values, is something that we cannot be doing any longer. And I am excited for the opportunity this year to support this question. I'm excited for the opportunity next year to work with all of you and to work with our municipal staff to implement early voting and no excuse absentee voting in our state. And I am looking forward to making this push over the next few weeks to get it over the finish line. So thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the continued conversation and discussion, and let's get back to work.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Mayor John Trister here from Newington. Thank you, Coralise, for organizing this and putting in all the work. Thank you so much to the Connecticut Project for all your efforts on this important initiative. And thank you to Luke Bronin for all your help recruiting. This is such an important issue because, for our communities, if they're going to prosper and thrive, all voters need an equal opportunity to make their voices heard. And absentee voting is about making our democracy stronger by ensuring all citizens, especially seniors and hardworking people, have a fair chance to vote. I'm supportive of this project and will be voting yes for it. Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for everyone to be here.
Good morning, everybody. I'm First Selectwoman Peggy Lyons from the town of Madison, and really grateful to participate in this. Thank you for organizing it. During the pandemic in Madison, we learned that absentee balloting is safe way for people to cast their votes and very secure. We had almost half of our residents use absentee balloting during the 2020 election. Offering absentee ballot voting as a permanent option for all registered voters, regardless of their circumstances, provides more choices for Connecticut voters to make their voices heard. I also want to mention that, this does not just apply to presidentials, it applies to a lot of local elections. And early voting does not include local budget referendums, for example. So any way that we can make voting easier for our local elections, Madison's last year's budget referendum, I think we had a turnout of 15%, which was actually high for us. So when you have such low turnout for local referendum items, whether it's budgets or other issues that towns are facing, early voting isn't an option. And so allowing people to vote absentee by choice rather than having these restrictive means of which you can cast a vote absentee will just make it easier for people to participate and have their voices heard at the ballot box. The other thing I'd highlight is that the absentee ballots have been available since October 4th. So there's a window between when absentee ballots are available and then early voting starts on October 21st. There's that gap of about over 2 weeks that things happen in people's lives, and people have travel plans or unexpectedly, or just an issue where they can't get to the polls, their car breaks down or whatever happens, life circumstances get in the way. Going and getting that absentee ballot and casting their vote earlier in the process before early voting ensures that they know they don't have to worry. If they end up being in town, it's okay. Their vote still counts. And so I think it just modernizes how we allow people to vote by mail. So I do want to encourage everybody to support and vote yes on question 1. And I think it's time that Connecticut residents have more flexibility and options when they choose to vote. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Paul Ponaruski. I'm the mayor of the city of Waterbury, and I am very happy to join with all of you today to advocate for this measure. And I'd like to thank all of those who made it possible for us to get together, for this to be an issue that we're talking about, and for this to be on the ballot this November. You know, in Waterbury, we struggle regularly with voter turnout. It's very difficult to get the numbers up, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but we have a large senior population in Waterbury that often finds it by election day. They may have thought they could get out to vote, but election day gets harder for them to do it. We have a lot of working families who struggle with 2 or 3 jobs that they're trying to balance. They don't always know what their work schedule is going to be at any given time. They also struggle with childcare issues and what they're doing to take care of children. Having this ability to vote early would definitely open up the process for all of them, give them a sense of comfort, make sure that they are all able to participate in the process. As has been said so often, this doesn't make Connecticut an outlier, but puts us in line with the majority of the states, whether they're conservative states, liberal states. This is what most Americans are able to do. We ought to be able to do it here in the state of Connecticut. Absentee balloting continues to be safe and secure. We know it works. We saw that it worked during the pandemic, and it ought to be something that's available to people all the time to make sure that everyone is able to participate in the process.
Thank you so much to my mayor, particularly. No shade to any of y'all, but thank you so much. I'm going to pass it to Mayor Thomas DeVivo from Wyndham. Oh, you're muted, Mayor.
How about now? So I unmute myself. Sorry about that. You know, I want to thank Senator Flexer for bringing this. She is my senator, and bring this important initiative to all of our attention. It's our next step. All of us, I believe, if you're on this Zoom call, that you know how important this early voting is. Many of us in my community, and we just heard it from the last speaker, our voting turnouts are very low, and this should help bring it up. And I'm really looking forward to making this happen. We really need to get this to pass at the polls, and but thank you for getting it on the ballot, Senator Flexer, and thank you, Luke Bronin, for inviting all of us to get together. It's the next steps that really count. So the more we can do together, make it happen, the better. We do need to increase voter turnout, and specifically on budgets and other initiatives that come before us. I think this is crucial to get this to pass. So the more we can do as a team to get it happen, the better. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor DeVivo. And I'm Justin Elliker, the mayor of New Haven. First of all, wow, the number of mayors and first select people on this call is pretty incredible, and it shows just how important this issue is. I too am here to support absentee voting for everyone. We want more people to vote, not fewer. And I'm sure, like everyone else here, you have shared similar experiences with me. On election day, you're making calls, trying to get people out, and someone will pick up the phone. I'm at the grocery store. I got to go pick up my kids. I have to take care of an elderly parent. I'm feeling sick today. I got sick yesterday, unexpected, and I'm not going to come to the polls. And there's people that work multiple jobs. There's so many reasons that it is challenging for people to get to the polls, where under our current system, they are currently not eligible. And so making it easier for people to vote is something that we should all come together on and agree upon. It's time we bring Connecticut up to the standard that most other red and blue states have. Why not make it easier to vote? It's a no-brainer. And now it's my pleasure. I see Matt Hoy on here to pass it over to the first select person of Guilford.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everyone, for organizing this. My good friend Luke Bronin as well. Keep up the work. There's not much I can add at this point that hasn't already been said, other than to lend my voice and support. There is no reason that Connecticut should not be in a place where no excuse absentee voting is available. There are so many things that Connecticut leads the country in. Well, we're following now, but now is the time to make that commitment, to make the change, to make it easier for people to exercise their right to vote. So thank you. And I'm not sure who I'm supposed to hand it off to because I wasn't even expecting to speak today, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. I will take the reins over from here. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. We've heard from, all over the state, and it's just incredible that all of you have taken the time to support this. I am also going to mention that Mayor Arunin from Hartford wanted to be here, but he had a prior commitment, but he also sends his support. Thank you so much once again for being here and making the time. You are all awesome. Mayors, if you could just put your cameras on for just a second if you're available, we'll just snap a quick screenshot picture. This is the best we're gonna get. And seeing that you all are here. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. You have been gracious. You have taken, the time to be here, and it has been so amazing, truly, to be able to host this. So thank you so much.